I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition.
If there was just one word for me to describe the subject of my next interview, it would be delegation. It is certainly focused on those particular people who are business owners and are wanting to sell or scale their business at some point in time. But for those of you who are not owners of businesses, listen up, because there's some great tips here about delegation that I think you will be able to transfer into your own world at work. The secret to scaling your business is hidden not in working more. Does this sound familiar? But in mastering the art of delegation, thereby unlocking unprecedented growth and freedom. In my interview, the highlight was a detailed 4-phase delegation plan my guest shared, designed to enhance business scalability. This plan unfolds through specific stages. Number 1, delegate sales tasks. Number 2, delegating marketing responsibilities. Number 3, delegating operational responsibilities. And number 4, introducing an executive role. My guest goes through all 4 of them with great detail, which I think is going to be, again, excellent for those of you who own businesses, but also for you who are not and want to be able to get better at your own leadership. So Brian Will is my guest, and he is a serial entrepreneur. That term I've heard so much, but I have to tell you, this guy really is, who has created or co-created 7 very successful companies in 4 different industries over the last 35 years. These companies were worth over $500 million at their peak. His first business was a 10-year stint in the landscaping industry that he started when he was just 20 years old. This was followed by 3 online internet startup companies during the dot-com boom of the late 90s and early 2000s. And today, Brian owns a growing chain of restaurants in Atlanta, and also he has an insurance and technology company based in Denver, and a residential and commercial real estate business in Georgia and Florida. He also serves on the city council in his hometown of Alpharetta, Georgia. And Brian is an industry-leading business and sales management consultant to companies from startup to Fortune 500. And during the course of his career, Brian has done multiple turnaround projects and helped those organizations drive billions of dollars in sales. His multifaceted background gives him the ability to understand and teach agile processes and principles and articulate their implications for multiple perspectives, from the development team to the executive board. Brian Will on the Business of Intuition. Brian, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much. I think I want to start off our conversation with this. You've had really amazing background and have started up a lot of companies and know business pretty much inside and out. How is running a business today to make it successful different than it was 20 years ago?
Oh my gosh. And first of all, Dean, thanks for having me on the show. And I've been doing this for about 35 years. And the difference today is, to put it in one word, it's the internet. But what that means is technology and information, right? So when I first started in the insurance business in 1996, we still had to drive around to people's houses and get wet signatures and physical checks to do an insurance policy for them, right? So when my first company was acquired by a venture capital firm, we developed the first consumer online enrollment platform in the country for health insurance and really for life insurance as well. Today, it's a no-brainer. You don't have an agent come see you to buy a health insurance policy. You just go online and you type some information in and you get it, right? Back then, if you wanted a quote on anything, you had to call somebody and talk to them. Today, you go online. You'll just go online and get it. The availability of information today makes everything different. It accelerates business. It makes things much bigger. It broadens your geographical reach. It allows you to build a company nationwide other than just in the 5 square miles that's around you. Business has changed astronomically because of this magic internet thing, I call it.
And so with all this magic that you just described, certainly now we've got things like AI and ChatGPT and all the other
The
things
next level.
that
Yeah.
are coming at us with incredible speed. How do you feel leadership needs to adapt to the external changes of technology? The leader of today, or I should say the leader of 20 years ago, would probably not do as well in business today. What are the
Mhm.
differences? What should leaders be paying attention to given the speed of change? I heard one person say that, I keep quoting this guy all over again, is that the speed of change right now is the slowest it's going to be for the rest of our lives. So, in this
Mhm.
whirlwind that we're in, fueled by technology, what does the common leader do to be able to be successful that maybe wasn't as important 20 years ago?
You know what's so funny about that question, Dean, is there are a lot of people who are leading companies today who were leading those companies 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so they haven't yet adapted. And I always joke, I'm like, I did a video on this on social media the other day. I'm like, I'm 58 years old, right? I'm old. And I couldn't figure out how to get my computer to do something. And my video was, what do you do when you're 58 and you can't figure out technology? You bring in a Gen Zer, right?
Yeah.
So I brought in my assistant who's 23 years old and she fixed all my crap.
Yep.
So, I guess understanding that you might not completely understand it, you might never completely understand it, but if you bring in the right people who do, you can adapt your company to everything that's going on without actually having to know exactly how all this stuff works. Because I don't. I mean, I messed up my email by clicking one button and it took 2 days to get it back and I had to bring Maggie in to fix it for me.
I
You know.
understand. I guess I'm wondering about what your thoughts are about family-run businesses with respect to this. I don't know if I've just now come up with this idea, but we've done some work with family businesses at a much greater percentage over the last month or 2 months or even a year than we have in 30 years of doing work. I don't know why, but for some reason we're finding family-owned businesses that want to work with us. And several of them are 100 years old.
Mhm.
But I find that there's sort of a unique sort of challenge with the family-owned business that's been around as long as they have, that kind of goes counter to what you just said. That in some ways, yes, we do need to bring on people who can fix my computer, but there's also sort of certain sort of stubbornness about this is the way we've done it. This is our culture.
Mhm.
This is my grandfather's business, you guys. Let's
Mhm.
not F it up. And I'm
Right.
wondering whether you are seeing that as well. And then how do you got a coaching business. How do you coach a person to be able to let go in order to let those who know what to do what they need to do?
So I think what you've explained, the way I would read what you just explained to me is we've got this theoretical 100-year-old company run by the guys who are the women who did it forever and ever. But now we've got second and third generation people rolling in here, right? And the second and third generation people are this social media crowd that I just talked about. And they're online and they're looking at all this great stuff. And they're like, come on, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, this is amazing stuff. We can do this. And they're like, I'm not sure if I want to do that because, that's not the way we've always done it. But the availability of information to the people that have access and are willing to use it are helping propel and push the people that have done it one way for their entire lives into these new change ideas, right? Now, getting them to adapt to that change idea is something that you're going to have to ease into. I find myself suggesting as opposed to telling, hey, maybe this is a good way to try this. Maybe this is something you should try. And let's not do everything, but maybe we do one or two things and we ease them down the road of making the necessary changes to bring their company into the 21st century. At least that's the way I've done it. So, but I think it's the third and fourth generation people that are prompting all this potential change that you're seeing.
So on that third and fourth generation, I want to pivot a little bit because I was just having this conversation with the CHRO, Chief Human Resource Officer person recently about some new people that were now leaders within their company. And they're like 23, 24, 25-year-old kids that I'm basically working with people of my son's age. It's like a fascinating experience. And so on one hand, I was really struck by their almost inability to interact socially in live setting. That there was a sort of deer in headlight look in their eyes when we would ask them to do some sort of exercise that would involve interacting with each other. Go role play this to help you get better at it. When I remember doing these sort of exercises years ago, and it was never that big of a deal. Like, sure, you had the shy person, introvert who didn't want to do it, and we all had stories about that, but it was a common thing. to me, I felt like I was introducing these people to something they've never done before,
Sure,
maybe
of course.
because of the fact that they spend most of their time on their screens. But what's your sense? Am I barking up the right tree? And then how have you been able to sort of navigate through that?
Think about it. Think about, Dean, 15 years ago, right before the internet, or 20, whatever it was. How many friends did you have? 4, 5, 6? Now think about today, these kids with a Facebook page. How many friends do they have?
Yeah.
Like 1,500 to 2,000.
Right.
They do not have the experience we had growing up having to interact with people. If you had a question and you needed to know something, you had to call somebody and ask them. Today, if I have a question, I just go to Google. Right. Today, if you wanted to get, back then, if you want to get something done, we had to actually talk to people. Today, they go to Google. I don't even have to go to the grocery store anymore. I just order off of Instacart, right? So yes, when you say they're a deer in headlights, it's because they don't have the social interaction that we did our entire lives growing up. And you're trying to introduce them to the old school way of actually talking to people and looking them in the eye and, negotiating a deal and getting stuff done. And they're like, I don't understand. Why can't I just do that on Google?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so on one hand, you said that we have to be able to, as leaders who are older in our life, bring on the newer ideas, the people who are able to fix our computers really quickly, to your point with your assistant. At the same time, there are some things that this older generation of you and I are apart will want to preserve this social interaction, this ability to have face-to-face conversations, to be able to complete a whole sentence and it makes sense. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, but you get my point. So I think we sometimes conflate the two, that we think, or some of the younger people may think, well, that's just because you're older, you don't understand that. And that doesn't mean that all of what we are trying to do is wrong, the older generations. Like, yes, we do need help with our computers. Thank you very much, younger person, for helping us with that. But we, on the other side of the fence, have some things to teach you. And it's sort of like this, maybe we can teach each other something here, and that's what I'm wondering about that, is how do we do that in this fast-paced
powerful? Think how powerful that person is who can take everything that we know how to do with everything that they know how to do and take it out into the world and deploy that against a business or an idea or a concept. Just
I just find it fascinating that
the road to success is right there.
Like, so what is today? Today is it's the 31st of January, 2024, when this particular conversation was had. Even just today in the newspaper, there was some major news of some big companies who are now demanding 5-day work weeks again. You remember the day when we were like, oh, it's all 2 days, maybe it's all virtual. That was the COVID message, right? We're all going to do this on our Zoom calls.
This company I told you I'm consulting with in Seattle went to a 0 work week after COVID, a 2-day. They just tried to change them from 2 to 3, and they all broke down crying. That they could not. They couldn't believe they'd have to come to the office for a 3rd day.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with you?
I know. And I had the same conversation with the leader yesterday about how do I get them to a 5-day work week? Because I'm afraid. Here's what they're afraid of. I'm afraid of losing, good people. Yeah. They're going to go to some other company that's going to say, yeah, you want to work from home 5 days a week? That's fine. But I think those opportunities are smaller and smaller. Even those companies that have a lot of individual contributors like IT and so forth that don't need necessarily to collaborate, they can do it by themselves, are losing the culture of their companies.
I make our people come in. So
5 days a week, or is it?
Of course, I own a restaurant chain. I always joke that I tried to do a work at home restaurant. Just come in and leave your money on the table at home and cook yourself something.
That's great. So let's pivot a little bit. You've been around the block a lot. I mean, if you were to write a book on leadership, what would 2 or 3 chapters be about?
In leadership? Yeah. Understand. This is number 1. Understand who you are and who you're not. The biggest problem with businesses or CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders, the reason they fail is because they don't understand who they are and they don't understand who they're not. Everybody gets enamored with this, I'm a CEO entrepreneur title, when in the reality, a lot of them are really technicians or salespeople, and they don't have the administrative skills to actually build and scale a company from an administrative standpoint. But if you can't get over that ego title, your company will probably fail, or it will never scale at the level it could. Figure out who you are, who you're not, backfill yourself with the people that can be strong where you're weak, check your ego, let them do their job, and scale the hell out of your company and make a crap load of money. That's the big one. Understand who you are and who you're not.
So let's go into that a little bit. Maybe there's somebody here who was in this boat. Brian, it's a great idea. I'd love to be able to have that sort of luxury of bringing on people. Right now, I'm a startup. It's me and a few people. And I'm not only out there whining and dining clients, but I'm also fixing my computer and I'm cleaning the toilets. So for now, I got to play all these roles. So how do you have a
100%.
person who kind of has that entrepreneurial, I'm going to just get it done? How do we know what we're good at? And how do we know what we're not good at so that we do have resources to bring on people, that we know what to bring on and what to keep? Like I have a good buddy of mine who owns a tech company. He's really good on the tech side. He runs all the business side, but he's got somebody else doing all the sales. And so they work really well together. Their egos are very different. Their personas are very different, so it blends. But what sort of questions should we ask ourselves that will help us understand what am I really good at that I should preserve, and what are some things that I should probably let go of?
This is a serious ego check question. It's self-reflection. And many times it's bringing somebody else in to help you make those type of decisions. Now, yes, when you are a founder in the beginning stages and you're not capitalized really, really well, you will have to hold all the roles in the company and you're going to have to do everything from sales to janitorial work. Yes, here's the mistake you will make. I had this conversation with an entrepreneur literally this morning. He's in his 5th year of business. And I said, let me ask you a question. As your revenues grew and as your profits grew, did you increase your lifestyle to match? Or did you leave your lifestyle at the bottom tier level so that you could take all of your profits to reinvest back into people, resources, structure, technology to help your company scale in the future? And he said, no, I live on my entire salary. I mean, I said, well, you can't grow because you're increasing your lifestyle as your business grows. You got to stop that.
Yeah.
If you're going to start, figure out what the minimum is you can make. Listen, my first business partner, Steve, I think when he sold his first company and he was making probably $2 million a year and he was living in a $180,000 house and driving a pickup truck. Okay. He sold the company. We started another one and then he went out and built the big mansion. But he lived this minimalistic lifestyle at the beginning so that he could fund his business properly to put the right resources in place so that he had the ability to scale to a company making $2 million. This particular guy today is stuck at $100,000 income. He can't go any higher because he has no money to pay people because he needs $100,000 to live.
Yep.
That's the problem.
That's really good. Yeah. Before we started this, I read through, the information about you, and you had submitted some questions that I could ask. And so there's one that sort of jumped out at me as I look at it again. So I'm going to ask it now. What is the difference between you and Elon Musk?
I knew you were going to ask that question.
I know. It's like, why not ask that? It's like, you get the stuff about what makes a company successful, all the other things, which is a lot of what people talk about. But, he's a popular guy. He's the Taylor Swift of business. He's just not dating anybody.
He's killing my stock valuations right now, Elon, please.
Yeah, I know, right? So,
all right, so
why did you put that in your list of questions that I should ask you first and foremost?
Because this one is a critical thinking process, right?
All right.
So a lot of times I tell people that if you're building a business, you need to find somebody to help you, a coach, a mentor, a consultant, something. But what you should not be doing is chasing the advice of billionaires. And here's why. Think about if me and you, let's say me and you, Dean, we decided we were going to start a trucking company. We were going to move products, whatever they were, between San Francisco and LA, right? And so we got to move these trucks back and forth. Now, we're going to have to think about things like traffic patterns, times a day. We're going to have to think about tonnage and how we're going to get things done. What if there's a traffic delay? That's what we have to think about. Do you know what happens when Elon Musk gets stuck in traffic between LA and San Francisco?
He hires a helicopter.
Let's build a tunnel. No, he wants to build a damn tunnel.
Okay.
So he starts the boring company and starts building tunnels underground so he doesn't have to sit in traffic. That's the way he thinks versus the way you and I think. You can't ask him for advice on how to build your startup because he doesn't understand that. He understands putting rockets in space and people on the moon and Mars and building tunnels underground and sticking things in your brain so that whatever you think find somebody who's 10 or 12 steps ahead of you. Now, I'm going to back into my question. What's the difference between you and me and Elon Musk? Nothing more than the way we think.
Right.
And that is it.
Right.
He thinks at a level that is so far above us, he's able to accomplish things we can't. We're still stuck down here thinking at our level. Now, we apply this to consulting, coaching, and mentoring. If you need to build and scale a company, go find somebody who's 20 steps ahead of you, who already has made the mistakes, already knows which way you need to go because their thinking is just enough above you that they can tell you what you're about to do right and wrong. There's no difference between us. just
So
the way you
what
think.
are you saying, that we should, pay attention to the Elon Musks and help our own thinking?
I'm saying if you're going to take advice, take it from somebody who's 20 steps ahead of you, not trying to put people on Mars.
Okay.
Now, when you get 20 steps up, go to the next one, and then go to the next one, and eventually, if you start an electric car company by yourself, go talk to Elon.
Yeah. Just watch the stock right now.
Don't pay yourself $56 billion and have the government come in and say you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, right. Which we're pulling up recent headlines in the newspaper. Well, so given that, where are you headed now? I mean, you've done a lot with your businesses. You bought and sold them. Bringing into this reference of thinking 20 steps ahead. What's 20 steps ahead for a guy like you?
I have 3 passions at the moment. One of them is writing. So I have my 4th book coming out here in April. And it's about scaling your company, preparing for an exit, and creating generational wealth. I love writing. I love working with people who want to learn this kind of stuff. My second one is working with entrepreneurs, CEOs and founders on how to scale their companies profitably, how to maximize their potential, how to prepare for an exit at a multiple that will create that generational wealth that you strived for when you started this business. We don't start a business so we can work 100 hours a week and miss our family.
Right.
We start a business so we can create generational wealth, hopefully, and create a lifestyle that we would not have been able to have if we had a job. So I love working with people and showing them how to do those kind of things. And then my third one is I'm involved in I'm a city council member in my hometown. So I'm in municipal politics. I get to make changes and fix things and work with people and stuff like that. So
that's great.
That's what I do.
So going back to the scaling thing, I think that I want to play on that a little bit and pull on that string a bit more. You had a great, I think, tip about not continuing to increase your livelihood, your quality of life to match your income or to match the profit of your company. I think that's great advice. What other things do you tell entrepreneurs who are trying to scale?
Key to scale and the key to exits and the key to maximum multiples is delegation, right? And again, I had another conversation today with a person. He said, well, I'm struggling with this delegation piece. And I said, the reason you're struggling is because you're afraid. And he said, what do you mean I'm afraid? I said, you're living in a world of fear. He said, explain. I said, okay, here's why you don't delegate. You are afraid the person you give the job to won't do it as good or as fast as you. You're afraid of that. You're afraid that the person you give the job to will screw it up and make you lose a customer. You're afraid of that. You're afraid that if you pay this person part of the money that you're making today, you're going to lose that money because they will never get as good as you and you've just lost income and you haven't really gained anything. You are living in a world of fear. And that world of fear is preventing you from ever scaling your company because you can only work 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, 70 hours. At some point, you're just burning yourself out. You're missing your family and you're going to get a divorce. Right here, talking to you.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you've got to learn to delegate. You've got to learn that the people you hire will never be as good as you. If you get 70%, you're good. If you get 80, you have a rock star. But if I have to hire 10 people that are 70% as good as me, I now have 700% of my productivity deployed into my business that I cannot do myself.
That's a great point. I do think that entrepreneurs have that idea that it's got to be as good as what I do.
Never.
It's got to be 100%.
I had a restaurant owner. He said, I walked in and the manager, the lights were too high and the music was too loud and he was standing over in the corner. And I can't believe he did that. I'm like, why can't you believe it? He doesn't own this restaurant. He doesn't care.
Right.
He's an employee. He's never going to think about the lights and the music and the floors and what's wet and what's not and how many people are at the bar and what chairs. He's not going to think about that. It's about his job.
Yeah. So if you go into the idea about delegation, great point, very basic thing. What are your tips on that? How do you best delegate? Making sure that expectations, training, all that is effective. That you're preparing that person for success.
So we do a 4-phase delegation plan. The first thing you need to delegate is anything that you can pay $20 an hour for. Answer your phone, run your errands, talk to people, do paperwork, fill in reports, data entry, anything that's a $20 an hour job, delegate it. That will free up your time to do what you're better at, which is building your company.
Yes.
The second thing you delegate is sales and marketing, right? You should not be the face of the organization to the customer. If you are, then the value of your business is diminished because nobody wants to buy a company that you are the main salesperson. Because when you leave, so do the customers. So the second thing we delegate is sales and marketing. It's actually sales and then marketing. And the last thing you delegate, once all the menial tasks are off your plate, sales and marketing is taken care of, you start delegating the executive position. And I call it bringing in a COO. Bring them in, train them. But here's the key, Dean, allow them to fail. Every failure is an investment on your part into their future in your life, right? Because if you can train them and let them fail and get better, as long as they get better, at some point you will be able to walk away and work 10 hours a week in your business instead of 50. And you just bought your life back for whatever that salary is.
Right. So
or it allows you to go do another business, or it allows you to expand the one you've got, but you've bought your life back.
Yeah. Right. So do you have an example, either yourself or another company you worked with, where we could put some flesh and blood around this particular 3-step process around delegation?
I literally, when I start a company today, no matter what it is, I have a phrase. I have 150 employees, and most of them will know the phrase that I'm useless, don't ask me. People come in my office and, well, I need an answer. I'm like, I can't help you. Go find somebody else. Now, the reality is I can, but I'm not going to. I will allow them to go out and do it. I will allow people to fail to a certain level before I'll step in and fix, as long as they learn the lesson. But like, for instance, I own restaurants. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to make drinks. I don't know how to seat people at tables. I don't want to know how to do that. I'll pay people. I've hired good people who already know how to do those things, and I let them do their job. Don't hire people that need trained if it's a person that's important, by the way. That's another big one. Too many people try to cheap out on the person they're hiring to run their company, and then they can't figure out why that person failed.
So say that again. You don't hire what?
So let's say that you want to hire this COO executive person.
Yeah.
I can point to 20 people who thought, well, I'll hire somebody that's only $50,000 instead of $100,000, and I'll train the $50,000 person instead of hiring the $100,000 person who already knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And most of these $50,000 people aren't $100,000 people, and they're going to fail. Or if they don't, it's going to take you so long to get there. It costs you way more than that extra $50,000 of salary that you were trying to save, right? Hire people who are good at what they do, and then let them do their job.
Yeah. Good point. Excellent. So, Brian, tell us about your programs, your books, so that people can sort of follow you and get to know more about you. You've got a lot of good information here, and how can people connect to it?
Yeah, so brianwillmedia.com is my website, brianwillmedia.com. My books, my podcasts, my newsletters, my blogs, my training programs, literally everything about me is on brianwillmedia.com. You can contact me on there. Everything's there. That's the easiest way to get me.
All right, great. So last but not least question. 2024, we're almost into February. What's your prediction for this year regarding the economy, regarding the health of business? It's an election year. What's your feeling? Are you bullish? Are you careful? What's your sense?
I'm scared. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
I'm scared because we don't know what we don't know what Powell's going to do with interest rates. We don't know who's going to get elected. I think it's a toss-up right now. Who's going to win this election? And I think that's going to play have a huge impact on what we're doing. We just don't know. I mean, you can't turn on the TV without hearing exact opposite opinions on what's going to happen, right?
Right.
So for the people that I know that are out there looking at investing and whatnot are keeping a lot of powder dry right now until we get some direction on what's going to happen. I think if interest rates go down, then we're going to see a boom in the economy, depending on what happens in the election and with Congress. And we're spending money like it's going out of style right now, even with the budget they're supposedly passing right now. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we're doing is unsustainable. We've got wars around the world. I'm keeping some powder dry. I'm not doing a heck of a lot of new investing right now until we get things settled down.
Got it. Brian, thanks for your time. Nice to meet you.
Dean, this was awesome. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.